Welcome to the fourth video on protection of information assets. In this video, we will cover these three topics: access control list, remote access security, and data leakage. Now let's start with access control list. So why we need access control list and what exactly it means? In the last video, we talked about identification, then authentication, and then authorization. Third one was authorization. And authorization means once you have logged into a particular system, the system checks what all you are authorized to. Yeah, what all type of access has been provided to you. And from where it checks, from where the system checks what all you are authorized to, it checks in ACL. It checks in access control list. So what ACL contains? It contains list of all the users of that particular system. For example, say SAP. So it has list of all the users whose request was approved. And against their name, it specifies the name of the roles which have been assigned to them. And just to simplify roles, what does role means in SAP? Each role is a combination of the access which has been provided. It's a combination of T codes, transaction codes in SAP. So each user is assigned one or more roles into the system. And whenever someone wants to access a particular transaction, suppose I'm trying to access a purchase order creation, system immediately goes into ACL. ACL is the list of what all each user is authorized. So it will check, okay, Rajiv Gupta is a user and he's trying to access what? Creation of purchase order. Against my name, it will, in that list of roles, it will check whether I have access to create purchase orders. If that role has been assigned to me, it will allow me to enter into that transaction. If that role is not assigned to me, it will give an error message that I am not authorized. So guys, this is the importance of ACL. Okay, access control list, very important topic from your exam perspective. And this next point, which you see on your screen, is very, very important from your real life perspective. And what it says, when a user changes job roles within an organization, very often their old access rights are not removed before adding the new ones. So suppose I was in the procurement department earlier, and then after a few years, I took a role, say, in controllership. Now, to perform my new role, which is controllership, I will place a request that I need these transaction access. And once, as we studied in the previous videos, once my manager approves, once the role owner approves, those additional roles will be assigned to me. But I no longer work for procurement department. So those roles which were assigned to me in my previous job role, those roles are not removed automatically in many organizations. And hence what happens? I retain my older access rights, I get a new one. And guys, many times it leads to potential segregation of duties conflict, which is very important problem or very notorious problem in the real life. And my gut feeling is you may get a question around this in your exam as well, because this is very important topic. So this particular slide, please revisit multiple times and then read more details in your CISA manual as well. Okay. The next topic is remote access security. And what best time would be to talk about remote access, than this COVID period when almost everyone is or was working from home. So what you were doing, you are accessing your company servers remotely. Yeah. See what happens when someone is sitting within the organization, then it is much more easier for the company and for the IT department to control, unauthorized access, to control what is happening. But if people are accessing the servers sitting from home, sitting from hotels, sitting from Himalayas, sitting from hill stations, sitting from Goa, then it becomes very, very difficult to manage the information security. And what are the type of risks which can happen? Since The IT has to open the ports so that people from outside the organization can access the system. So denial of service can be a risk to the organization, where someone may try to bring down the server, and many times hackers do this, especially on those servers which can bring the company down. They don't do it on those servers which are like backend server, the servers for accounting department or servers for other things. They do it for the front end servers, like where the customer orders are taken, or the websites, where websites are maintained and all those things. So, that is why remote access risk becomes very, very critical for the organization to manage, whether it is, because of misconfiguration, or whether it is about, host system not secured properly, or whether it is about, physical security. Because, for example, you and I, we are, working from home right now. So, there is no, my company doesn't know that the company laptop which I am using, the company laptop which has been assigned to me, who is working on that laptop while accessing the company network. I may have given my laptop to a hacker, who is trying to use my ID and password to hack into this company server. So that is also possible. But if we all were working from office, then the security system would not have allowed someone else to go inside the organization without registering himself as a visitor. And for visitor, every company has a lot of restrictions, what they can do, whether they can plug their system into the company network or not. So that way, a lot of risk arises when you're working remotely. And that is why, guys, as a IAS auditor, you check these 3 or 4 remote access controls. First and foremost is the design. And design is looked at firstly by looking into the policies and standards, that what the remote access policy says. How stringent is the remote access standard which the company is following. How identification and authentication is done. And authentication, guys, we discussed in the last video. Authentication is more about password, OTPs, maybe single factor authentication, dual factor authentication, and so on. So what type of those controls have been set up? Proper authorization, that with identification and authentication, you allowed someone to come in, but what all he can do is defined by authorization. So whether proper authorizations have been maintained or not, and the encryption, whether the data which is coming in and going out, proper encryption, is happening or not. Because otherwise, if I'm accessing company servers sitting at, at the airport, and if the data is not encrypted, right? So someone else sitting at the airport, if he is a hacker, then, and if my data is going in clear text, not encrypted, then anybody can, read the data, which is going to my company server, because I am accessing it using maybe airport Wi-Fi or the hotel Wi-Fi and so on. So unsecured network if I'm using. So that's how at least these 4 things, these 4 controls needs to be tested to ensure that the remote access has been reasonably controlled. Okay. So with that, we'll move to data leakage. So guys, data leakage is becoming again very, very important risk and very important concern area for almost every organization in this world. If you see every company, no, not every company, I would say, if you see these days, people say data is the new oil, right? And if data is the new oil, and if any unauthorized access happens, or if data leakage happens, then that is the loss of competitive edge of that company to its competitors. That's number 1. Number 2, it brings a lot of reputational loss to the company, because if the data leakage happens, then that company loses the trust of its customers and the consumers. And why they lose? Because every company has all this personally identifiable information of their customers, including their maybe credit cards, information, maybe their mobile numbers, their address, and so on. And hence, if customers get to know that the company with which they had shared the data, its data has got leaked, someone has hacked into it, and that data is available on dark web, the customer loses the trust on that company. And that is why, guys, DLP is becoming very, very important tool. And what is DLP? It is data leak prevention tools. So there are many tools which are now becoming very, very important for organizations to implement at least one of them. And what it does, it keeps tracking, it keeps monitoring what is coming in, what is going out. It gives warning to the users. I'll give you an example. So a couple of examples. Suppose I am working in, say, company ABC. Now my company's domain name so my email ID may be rajivgupta@abc.com. Now, if I am trying to send an email to say Rajat Gupta at yahoo.com, or maybe gmail.com, or maybe xyz.com, then DLP tool, what it does, it keeps track and it gives me a warning. It can be in the form of a ribbon which says that the recipient of this email is an external person. And it gives me that ribbon before I send. And how that the tool gets to know? It gets to know from the domain name, what I have written after @ As long as that domain is abc.com, which is my own company, the tool doesn't create any hue and cry. But the moment I am sending an email to someone who is outside my organization, it tells me, it's like giving a warning to me only, and in the backend it is monitoring. So it's just giving me warning before I click the send button that you are sending to someone outside the organization. So that tomorrow a user cannot say, oh, I sent it by mistake, and there was nobody informed me, nobody warned me that I'm sending it outside. That is one. Secondly, DLP can be, many companies use to ensure that nobody is sending any attachment outside the company. And why so? Because it has been, noticed in many companies that if someone wants to, leak a personally identifiable information, then normally it is in the form of Excel file, text file, Word file, or things like that, and they attach that file to an email. And normally that email obviously goes to someone outside the company. So DLP tools, they track that, is this user sending an attachment to a domain which is outside the company? And then depending upon the configuration of the tool, it can give you a warning, which you have to accept that, yes, I am intentionally sending this tool, this attachment outside the company. Or there can be, some other type of monitoring. So there are a lot of, configurable options which are available, which enables the company to monitor what is happening, what is the pattern coming from different users. Is Rajiv Gupta sending a lot of attachment to people outside? Is he sending attachment to a specific user ID outside? What type of attachment he is sending? Is it a PPT? Is it a Word file? Is it an Excel file? Is it a text file? Text file becomes more risky because much more data can be accommodated into a text file in smaller size. Yeah, I mean the size of the file is small and the data can be really humongous. So all those permutation combinations are entered into the DLP tool to monitor the pattern of how users are behaving, and based on that study, appropriate actions are then taken on the user in case any wrongdoing is found. So that is a quick note on the data leak and data leak prevention. Yeah, very important topic, guys. And many companies are setting up a separate function which are responsible for data management and for data leak prevention as well. Yeah, so you may expect a question on this in your exam, and in real life also this is very important. So that's all I wanted to discuss in this video, guys. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.